Welcome to It's a Grand Life. Did you know that in the United States alone, 2.4 million kids are being raised by their grandparents or other family members other than mom or dad? 2.4 million. It's a Grand Life is a podcast for those grandparents and kinship caregivers who are committed to making a difference for those kids. Grand families are in every neighborhood, every city, tribe, and territory nationwide. If this is you or someone you love, this podcast is for you. Our goal is to offer hope and resources to help you. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us wherever you get your audio podcasts and leave a review. Every new subscriber and review helps us reach others that need assistance. Welcome to another episode of It's a Grand Life. Hello, my name is Craig Nash, and we'd like to welcome you to another It's a Grand Life. And I think you're really going to be blessed with our program today. One of my favorite people on the planet is joining us, my personal life coach, Greg Long, and he's training folks all over the globe. And he and I have been involved in some, I guess you would call it intensive training regarding dealing in the area of hearing from God, having peace in our life, and how to resolve conflict with folks that we may have conflict with. And we had such a great discussion the other day when we were getting a coffee that we said, we came up with a title for our discussion, Greg, you remember, and it was, "This Shouldn't Be," right? Wasn't that it? It was, "This Simply Shouldn't Be."
Yes.
So Greg, welcome to It's a Grand Life. And one of your famous quotes, and you've got many of them, but one of your most famous is, "You're the problem." And when you, so I'm like, okay, this is my friend. I'm meeting with him to help me make the right choices. He tells me I'm the problem. But I think that's the real world, isn't it?
It's the real world. Yeah. First, thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me on again. But the real world is my point of view, and I'm the problem. It's the only place I get any power. I never get any power in blame or reasons or circumstances. I only get my power back when I go, "Oh, you did it again." Oh, I did. And then I laugh at myself a little bit, and then I go about my day instead of getting hooked on a resentment for a month. Yeah.
Well, that is absolutely true. And resentment or unforgiveness, we know that those are things that stop the whole process of peace in our life.
Yeah.
We remember that even Jesus saying, how many times do we forgive folks? Well, 70 times 7. I mean, just you don't quit forgiving others, and forgiving the main person is yourself.
Yeah.
And how that can stop that peace in your life. And but this whole idea of we were discussing also the two identities. One is the real self and the false self. And the false self is, and what causes all the problems is this lie that we believe that things are scarce. There's not enough for everybody.
Yeah.
And we never have enough. So we certainly can't be content, Greg, with the way things are if we believe we never have enough, right?
Well, we actually, in my belief system, right? My belief system is, if I'm not believing in abundance, I'm pushing things away, right? Because that's a teaching. The teaching is there's enough for everyone. There's always enough for everyone. Now, does it look exactly the way I want it to look? Absolutely. I want to sit on my front porch and have bags of money drop on my head. But so far that hasn't happened, right? So I have to either stop living in the world called I want and start living in the world that this is what I have, enjoy the moment, right? So we're so funny. We're just hilarious. Back to the conversation that we had about it shouldn't be, right?
Right.
Once I get into anything where I declare to myself, I don't even know I'm doing it, right? I look at the balance of my bank account, right? And I go, it shouldn't be. And right, it just shouldn't be. There should be something different, right? And all of a sudden, all I can do is focus on is money, right? And then all of a sudden, my relationships disappear, my peace of mind disappear, because now I'm chasing something, I'm driven to produce something. Same thing happens in my relationship with my spouse. or my relationship with my kids. I just got through visiting my daughter and her husband up in Oscoda this month, right?
Yep.
And it was so great, and I used to live in the world it shouldn't be. Like, how can she be happy? She's not happy. She's missing this and this whole world called, well, if she had all the things I had, then she'd be happy, right? So let me send her some debt. Let me send her some resentment. Let me send her some of the things, the breakdowns that I have. Let her send it where I've overspent and can't afford what I own. Let me send her out. Then she'd be really happy.
She'd have it
right?
together, right?
She'd have it together then, right? Instead of, no, she wants for nothing. She's got this newborn baby at home and she is so content and happy. And do they have everything that they want? No. I mean, but that's what keeps us moving and gets us out of bed. But they don't live in a world called it shouldn't be.
Right. And there's something for being content with what you have. And of course, we're in a culture where that, we need to self-promote, self-protect. I need to compare. Oh, Greg's got a new truck. I need a new truck. No, he may be, buried in huge payments. I mean, there's something to be said for, just saying I haven't. That's abundance. When you could say I have enough.
Yeah.
I don't need any more. And my life is as big as I want it to be. If you wanted. Like you're saying, if you're, you've said many times, if you're not happy, if something's going on with you, go out and serve somebody. I mean, go out and be a blessing to someone who could really benefit from your kindness and your generosity. But why do we live like that?
Well, I think it's just a human condition. We're brought up in a world, remember, we're born into an environment called looking good. Your parents had if you have a perfect house, a white picket fence, 2.5, I don't know, I still haven't figured that out how you have 2.5 children. But if you have 2.5 children in the average, then you look good, you look successful, you look the way society says you're supposed to look. Well, that's an environment that we were born into. We had no say-so.
Right.
We had no say-so. If you live in this zip code, you look good.
Right.
If you drive this style of car, you look good. Now, being, when I'm 5 years old, I'm in that environment called, oh, this is what has you be good person or bad person, or feel good about yourself or bad about yourself based on what we've been taught. And so I have to dismantle my thought process, really sit down and realize that the meaning that I've added to the things I've been taught aren't exactly the truth.
Right.
There's somebody else's observation.
Right.
Right. And am I willing to not compromise, am I willing to not try to fit in or not try to look good to be happy?
And what you and I have been trained, we have to take a minute to tell the truth about where we're at. I'm feeling bad because of this situation or that situation, and folks can do that in a simple prayer, or they can do that through meditation and just, why am I feeling this way? And we have to work on every emotion that gets out of alignment, because I think we're supposed to be walking in peace and trying to be advocates for this peace that we can have in our life, and have folks say, wow, how can you be going through this situation where your family's got all these challenges going on and your daughter's living on the streets, and how can you have that much peace in your life? And it's because we spend a lot of time telling the truth. And
but that, listen, I can be afraid and I can tell the truth. I cannot trust. I can even spend moments not believing.
Right.
But if I walk around pretending that none of that exists, I'm being inauthentic everywhere in my life. Now, especially inside of my faith, when I have to deal with, or if I don't deal with it right now, but if I have to deal with my daughter's living on the streets or doing whatever, right? If I really do trust and believe, then I start to oh my gosh, she's on the journey she's on to become the person Jesus wants her to be. Do I accept that? No. She should be living in a house with 2.5 children, and she should have debt like me. She should be driving a car she can't afford. She should be living in a house that's too big to clean. She should have all those, then she'd be happy, not being on the path that Jesus has designed for her to be on.
Right. Plus 300 plus cable channels. She needs that as well.
Gotta have cable, gotta have a $400 cable bill. If you don't have a $400 cable bill, you're living in a cave.
You might as well have 2 cans and string between it. You're just living totally in a cave. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
And so why do we project that on others the way
we just
think?
don't trust. Listen, human beings are only happy, truly happy, they think, when they're being right.
Right.
Right? But every time I'm right, that means I have to make everybody else wrong.
Oh, man.
We don't live in the impact of being right. See, I come to my own conclusions and I'm right about them. And then I go shove them down your throat. And I got to make you wrong for your belief systems. And I got to make everybody wrong for their belief systems because I decided I'm right. Well, there's no possibility in being right. I've killed off anything.
Right.
Have you ever noticed somebody tried to describe Jesus? They just limited what's possible for Jesus in their description. And they're right about it.
Right. And exactly. I heard someone talking today who said, have you ever noticed when you read about Jesus where he stops and leaves everybody and goes off alone to have this meeting with God to get everything clear and what have you, and then goes back to his real life? Do we ever see Jesus do that in scriptures? All the time.
That's right.
We have to disconnect from this social media and this whole world
consider
around
maybe
us.
He was dealing with his ego, just like us. Maybe he got too big to own his own britches. Maybe he thought he arrived somewhere and he had to go check in with the boss to get his ego back in place and say, no, you're not right about anything.
Or maybe it was just overwhelming to healing all these people every single day. But it's...
Well, can you imagine if you had the power, how big your ego would get and how quick it would get?
I couldn't imagine, first of all, having the power, let alone, I humanly, I could not keep my ego in check if I was able to put hands people on a, of course, he had such unbelievable humility. He said, if I don't serve you, you have no part of me, so yeah. He was always, I love that phrase where his mission statement, the Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And that idea of the word serve there is the word deacon. And if you're from church circles, there's deacons everywhere. They're serving everybody. I didn't come to be deaconed. I came to deacon. It's like you every Saturday, you're putting up a new ramp for someone who's stuck in their house in a wheelchair, and you and the folks at FaithWorks at Kensington Church are out putting up ramps for folks that have no hope of getting out of the house without that ramp, and it's life changing, and that's what we need more of.
Well, I think, listen too, Craig, I'd like to think that's really serving at the highest level, but it's really a practice in humility. Because if I don't practice humility, I get full of myself and I think I've arrived somewhere. So I've got to practice humility on a regular basis or I'm done.
And that pride can come right before a fall. And
it really does.
And it all gets back to us having a proper relationship with God and being able to confess when things are out of alignment.
Yeah.
Instead of pretending that I'm right and everything's right, tell the truth. Start and we had our small group last Friday at our house, and we have a normal time where the ladies meet in one room and the guys meet in one room, and we talk about areas that we could pray for one another, and it's quite a powerful thing. But I've noticed over the years, especially us men, we like to pray about superficial things, and we like to deal with. I literally had one time a gentleman say, could we pray for the Detroit Tigers? They're having a rough time right now. And I said, we're not going to get anywhere if we're pretending we're self-promoting and self-protecting like that. Yeah. And meanwhile, there's things going on inside of us that are quite challenging. So we know from all of these social scientists that the number one factor in longevity is community, is connection, it's fellowship. And you can't have phony fellowship and call that, really a wonderful tool for longevity. You got to be around people that you can tell the truth to, who aren't going to ditch you because you are flawed, because we're all flawed. True?
That's it. You're it. You gotta, well, that's being authentic, right? I'd rather live an authentic life than pretend I'm somebody I'm not. There's nothing worse than being with somebody who's pretentious inside of their communication, who they are, everything's perfect. No, I want to be with human beings.
Right.
The flawed human beings that are at least up to something in life called, I'm not committed to being flawed, but I am.
Right.
Yeah.
And are not afraid to say that, there's fallibility in my life. I
Yeah.
make sometimes the decisions I make aren't the best. And they're again talking about that true self from the false self. The false self is telling us there's a scarcity mentality. There's not enough to go around. We've got to compare. We need separatism too. My group needs to be separate from your group. And everything's got to be certain, because we know everything's got to work out perfectly. That's my ideal life. And to do that, I have to self-promote and self-protect. We know that doesn't work as far as generating long-term peace and with God and everyone around you. The true self says, I'm interconnected. And most people are like me. They want good education for their kids. They want a roof over their head. They want a car that transports them here and there. And they want peace in their life. And also the true self, there's a life of mystery. We don't have all the answers. And that's why we're dependent on a relationship with God to get us through that. And we do make mistakes. But being here is for the common good. It's not about me self-promoting and self-protection. And that's what you and I got all wound up about the other day, having our cup of coffee, that, we need to talk about this shouldn't be. And what gets us out of this place of peace and contentment is our own ego and pride.
Yeah.
And
without a doubt. Listen, Craig, I think the only thing, part of, like you said, that, I wake up in the morning and my joints are sore, right? Because I was a carpenter for years and things like that, right? And immediately I go into this shouldn't be, right? And because I work hard at it and all this other stuff. And once I go into it shouldn't be, before I'm not up 20 minutes and I become a victim. And then all of a sudden I have to go to war against being a victim, right? So I have to convince myself that, yes, it should be, this is what I've done, this is part of, right? So every minute's a battle in the morning to get over what I just created the first 10 minutes while I'm awake. Right? So it's human being. It's a human condition called, when I get confronted or life doesn't look the way I should, I live in a world called it shouldn't be. And when I live in a world called it shouldn't be, nothing's possible.
Well, how do we get to the world of it is possible?
Well, listen, there's only one way. Language. Stuck up here, it turns into the truth. Speak it out here, it sounds ridiculous. Right? I've got to speak out here in the world called, no, my life, I got to look for something to be grateful for. I have to replace the story called, I'm too sore to go to the gym, or, it shouldn't be this way. Or if my wife behaved properly, then I'd be really happy. All this world called it shouldn't be. So if I start to declare, when I speak acknowledgement for how grateful, I speak who my wife is in the world. I speak how grateful I am for having the opportunity to even wake up in the morning. I speak about those things that out loud, because unless I'm speaking them out loud, they're not real. They're just other stuff caught up here. See, if I'm thinking about how to get out of something, I'm trying to fix my own thinking with my own thinking.
How's that working?
It never turns out, right? Because now I'm arguing with myself, I'm fighting with myself, and I come to some goofy conclusion that lets me off the hook for being responsible for anything.
100%. I'm just thinking about the words that the Apostle Paul told that group in Thessalonica, Greece. He said, be joyful, prayerful, and thankful. I mean, it seems like a pretty basic prescription.
But
that fits everybody. You don't have to be,
you've got to exercise it though.
right.
I've got to do it on a daily basis, like going to the gym. I can't do it once and then think I'm going to last all month.
100%.
I exercise it by looking for what's great and awesome about my wife instead of looking for what's wrong. I look at my car and I'm so grateful for having the car that I have instead of comparing it to the one my neighbor has. I start to look inside of my house and fall madly in love with where I live instead of wishing I lived somewhere else. I have to practice and practice and practice and practice. Then I quiet the noise down. I never eliminate it. I just quiet it down.
Right.
To where I can manage it as not the truth. But if I don't practice it, all of a sudden one little thought in the morning becomes the truth and it ruins my whole day.
That's so true. So, in our situation, you're a grandparent, I'm a grandparent, and our audience is filled with grandparents that are raising their grandkids. And we could very easily have a tendency to put on the woe is me record.
Yeah.
And I used to have a friend that would say, no one's got it worse than me. Well, we know that's not true. There's always someone that's got it worse than you.
Yeah.
But what would you say to us grandparents or kinship caregivers that are raising kids we didn't count on, but we love the kids, but some days it's overwhelming? What would you say to us?
Listen, first off, I want everybody to get that I understand completely. When my grandson visits for 5 hours, I need a 3-hour nap, right? I mean, so I really get that this isn't how we planned it. This isn't exactly how we designed it. This isn't what we thought retirement would look like, or thought the end of the last quarter of our being, was supposed to look like. All those things come into play, and that's the world called it shouldn't be.
Right.
Instead of, if I could, this is the part that we don't get. If I could make up anything, why would I make that up? Why would I make up that? Because then I become a victim to the story that I made up. So I have to make up something really awesome. Like, thank you, God, for trusting in me to do it over again.
Right.
Thank you for allowing me to be the guardian of this human being so I can actually do over what I might have messed up before.
Right.
Right. You know how many times you say, when you were first a parent, when you were young, when the kids were young and they were the age of your grandkids, and when you said something to them, you'd walk away going, oh my God, that's going to put them in therapy. Well, we get a chance not to put this one into therapy, right? We're still going to mess up, and you can laugh, but like you said, it's made up.
Right.
Why would I make that up? Why would I make up this shouldn't be instead of, no, this is a divine design that I have no clue why it's happening, but I'm going to trust that it's happening because I'm the best person for this young soul.
That's great. That's absolutely great. And it's
right. So start making stuff up. And when you hear yourself make up things that aren't powerful, that aren't creating a new possibility, ask yourself, well, why am I making that up? Out of all the things I can make up, why would I spend time making that up? What don't I want to be responsible for? What don't I trust? Where did my faith go? So I'm going to make up all these things that don't serve me. They just don't serve me.
And do you think fear shows up in this context where you're making things up to kind of rationalize your behavior? I mean,
well, no, I make things up so I don't have to face the fear.
Oh, right. Right?
Yeah, listen, I'll give you my example for the gym because it's so prevalent for me, right? I work out 3 times a week now, and I walk the dog every morning, right? But when I get up to go to the gym in the morning and I'm tired and I really don't feel like it, I start limping like some crippled old man. And I don't know what happened. The day before I was fine, but now I'm limping, my knees hurt, my elbows are sore. It's all that stuff that I'm trying to have myself make up that I don't have to go to the gym this morning. And this miracle happens every morning. When I get to the gym, everything stops hurting.
It's all mental. It's all up here, right? Yep.
I mean, I'm not limping, like I can't even straighten, and I get to the gym and all of a sudden I'm young again, right? But that's us in life, right? I make up something. I have to make up just enough so I can go to sleep at night knowing that I had a good enough excuse not to do what I said I would do.
Right. So if we were more grateful, if we were more thankful, if we were spoke a more positive position of where we want things to go, as opposed to getting negative on it.
Well, I have to realize that that's a story. I'm creating a story to let me off the hook for dealing with something I don't particularly feel like dealing with.
Right.
Some days I don't want to be a parent.
Right.
Some days I don't want to be a husband.
Right.
Right. Some days I don't want to volunteer at Faith Works and put in a ramp for somebody that has no means. You know, I don't feel like it. Well, if I take that out of the equation, called I said I would do it.
Right.
And of course, I know that they're going to get all this little voice trying to talk me out of it. No, not today. Look how good you're. No. You could go back. You should go back to bed. You look tired, right? All this little voice that's talking me out of what I gave my word to. Then once I do that, once I allow this little voice to talk me out of keeping my word, I've diminished my relationship with myself. And when I diminish my relationship with myself, I don't trust anything or anybody.
Isn't that interesting? We don't trust others when we diminish the relationship with ourselves.
I don't trust my faith. I don't trust anything. Why? Because if I can't keep my word to do what I said I did, and I let this little voice come up with reasons and circumstances to let me off the hook. Now, some are real, right? Some things really happen in life where I have to acknowledge that I didn't do that. But if this little voice is talking to me all the time and I surrender, I've really diminished my relationship with me.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I can't be powerful. I can't move forward. I don't trust my decision-making process. I certainly believe that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Right. All that goes out the window. And now I'm living in a life with a diminished relationship with me. And I know that's not how we're designed and what was intended.
No, 100% true. So,
right.
I absolutely. So so if you were chatting with our audience of grandparents and kinship caregivers, what would your prescription be for us to wake up every day to put in place to have a absolutely exquisite day?
Well, first I have to practice. I have to put some things in my calendar, right? Not just think about maybe I should, right? No, I'm going to get up at this time and then get up at that time. Then I'm going to sit with my quiet personal time, right? Because that's what I said I would do.
Yep.
Then I'm going to take the dog for a walk, right? Not for how long a walk, for a mile walk. See, I'm putting 5 or 6 practices in so I can actually deal with this little voice in my head. Because when I conquer that little voice, no one can mess with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So by 8 o'clock, when I get to wherever I'm going or whatever I'm doing, you can't mess with me, Craig. Why? Because I conquered all the little voice that wants me to go back to bed, wants me to have pizza for breakfast, wants me not to go for a walk, let the dog go run the neighborhood, do all the things, right?
Right.
So then you can mess with me because I've diminished my relationship with me. I've even taken it one step farther. You know these crazy people that are in cold plunges every morning?
Yes. Yep.
Well, I bought one of those, right? And I made a promise to get in that thing every day for 2024. Why? Because I want to deal with this. I want to develop a muscle where this little thought process that says, don't do that. Are you crazy? Right? And I go do it anyway. Once I step out of it, I have a relationship with my word and myself that no one can mess with.
That's great. So you're being honest with yourself, and that's where it all starts.
That's exactly right. And when I do have a breakdown, I don't beat myself up. Why? Because that doesn't do anything but provide me more of the meaning that I'm adding to it. It doesn't mean that. It means, no, I got lost sight of my commitment. And I was tired and I let this voice take over and I'm not committed to that. I declared the day complete and I do a better job tomorrow.
and you start over with a whole new open slate, and those, you have 6 things already in place of what's going to happen that day, and they so you're setting the table every morning. And
Setting the table every morning. That's right. And not listening to that little voice, because that little voice says some weird stuff in the morning.
oh, it absolutely does. And you can hobble as you head to the washroom when you first get up, and that's right there. It gives me 5 reasons why we're not going to the gym.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm ready to call the trainer on speed dial, tell him I won't be there because my knees are hurting from what he did to me yesterday. I'm going to blame him.
I can hardly move. One of the things we talked about, and this is the last thing I want us to hit on here today, is we talked about the problem as even we adults have with being distracted by devices.
Yes.
And we talked about how we lose our true joy when our life is dependent on the dopamine hits that come from Facebook and TikTok or whatever you watch. And I thought you really waxed eloquent on that. So why is that? Why is that dopamine so important to us? And it helps us get nothing done. But we are so addicted to it.
Well, for one, I hope you're not addicted to it, right? Because I'm dealing with the problem was I was addicted to it, right? Because it's much more interesting than the stuff I gave my word to.
Right.
It's much more interesting. I'd much rather sit there and watch TikTok or Facebook than I would go to the gym, right? So it's much more interesting in the things I gave my word to, because I'm looking for the dopamine hit. I'm looking for that little bit of high, that rush, that whatever's there for us, right? So I became addicted to it, right? So I have to put in practices now. And it might be your TV show at 7:00. I clear the room, get out of my way. I've got to watch this show at 7:00 because it's a 122 episode series. This one because it gives you a dopamine hit to watch that.
Right.
So part of it is I've given away my power to a mechanism.
Right.
I'm no longer powerful. This is dictating my future. Right. So I have to put in practices. I have to, no longer, Craig, are you as interesting as you used to be. Why? Because this phone's much more interesting than you are.
100%.
Because it's got a cute little puppy and it's got, stuff, you're just not that cute anymore.
100%. It's so true. But the electronic tether really affects our well-being.
Completely. I'm so distracted by it. So what I started to do is I started to put the phone in the back seat when I get in the car, because I'm just too tempted.
Right.
Because why? Driving's boring.
Right.
So I'd much rather try to drive and watch a YouTube video than I would drive and pay attention. So I'm breaking the law. So I wake up in the morning declaring to the world how I'm operating with integrity in all areas of life. And then I pick up my phone and drive my car.
Right.
Well, when I got my driver's license, I implied I would follow the rules, right? And then I don't follow the rules. And then I wonder why life's not working out so great.
Exactly. But even getting that little distraction by your cell phone or that television program or whatever, it can break up the continuity you have, the peace you can have in your life, the joy you can have in your life, and the ability to serve and help others, because it turns the focus onto self again. And it's my dopamine hit, as opposed to, am I going to encourage this other grand family member to be successful in a trial they're having or a challenge they're having. And it's and with those of us raising young kids as part of a grand family, and of course we're saying to our grandkids, you can only, in fact, we've had guests on our program or experts on managing social media.
Yeah.
But we need to manage ourselves when it comes to social media. And
Craig, one of the opportunities in which you get listen, some of you grandparents out there that are taking care of your grandkids, it's because one of the parents or both are hooked on drugs or alcohol, right? If I can't set the phone down, I'm no different than a heroin addict. It's just the difference is mine is socially acceptable and theirs isn't.
Right.
It's just as destructive because I've diminished my relationship with who Greg is. Because if I can't keep my word to drive a car without staring at the phone, right?
That's not good.
That's a heroin addict. Guess what your kids get up every day doing? They say, no, today I'm not going to do that. Guess what happens by noon? They're
Right.
doing what they normally do because they're an addict. Right? So it's no different. People are addicted to their phones. They're addicted to their TVs. They're addicted to their cup of coffee in the morning. Try talking to somebody that's got a coffee addiction before they've had their first cup of coffee. You find out how addicted they are, right? You come back with a stub off your arm because they bit your arm off, right? But those are some of the things that you want to deal with and start to understand the world that your child is in that just got addicted to something that's destructive,
Right.
right? Well, this isn't destructive so far, but it's on the way. No different than alcohol was for a while until Mothers Against Drunk Drivers got involved and started to really take on that. No, 2 drinks is an addiction if you're going to get behind the wheel.
Right.
Right. So there's all kinds of things we're dealing with, but now I can have an understanding instead of a resentment for what they're going through because I'm dealing with mine, just not as bad as theirs.
Right. Absolutely. So it's about a great attitude. It's about putting things into your schedule that allow you to be successful during the day, and physician, heal thyself. Parent, heal thyself. Watch out for these landmines that can lead you down an addictive path.
So
And
good.
It's so Greg Long, thank you so much for being our guest here on It's a Grand Life. It's absolutely been a blessing. And our talk for today was called This Shouldn't Be.
That's right.
This
right.
shouldn't be. And
Well, listen to yourself tomorrow morning when you declare that to yourself. When you go downstairs and your wife moved the coffee and you go, this shouldn't be.
and now we'll know how to handle that. So
That's right.
and I hope you'll come back and join us again soon. And
Of course.
Give us another update on what we need to focus on, and so that we can live an abundant, grand life. Thank you so much, my friend.
You're welcome, Craig. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for It's a Grand Life. It's a Grand Life provides vital content, regulatory updates, and subject matter experts that are committed to supporting the 2.4 million kids and their caregivers from every neighborhood, every city, every tribe and territory nationwide. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review. Every new subscriber and review helps us reach others that need assistance. As caregivers, we are united in purpose. We are driven by hope while providing strength for today and hope for tomorrow. We are truly making a difference while living the grand life. If you have a suggestion for a future episode, please reach out to us. But we'll see you next time for another It's a Grand Life. Thank you for joining us.